time for the Morning Blitz with Ross Volkmer.
That broadcast school has really paid off.
And Christian Peck-Dimit.
Do you want to keep this job? Shut up, listen, learn.
The region's only local sports talk show, discussing it all from the preps to the pros.
What time is it?
Simulcasting on AM 730 Fox Sports Tri-State, streaming online at nwksradio.net and the Rockingham app.
They are everywhere.
The Blitz is presented by the Insurance Agency, the Farmer State Bank in Oakley, the Cowboy Corner Express, and Equity Bank of Hoxie, Quinter, and Grinnell.
Stop what you're doing and listen.
Out over the plate, left center field, and that's deep. Castro's back at the wall. A 2-run home run for Velasquez. And the Royals have 4 in the third inning.
That's a drive to deep left field. To the wall, clear the deck, cannonball coming. Andrew McCutchen gives the Bucs a 3-1 lead with his 8th home run of the season.
That's well struck. Right field. You can watch this one sail out of here. It's a gunner grand slam.
2-pitch to Stallings, and that's hit to right field. It's pretty well struck. Rodriguez going back, and it's off the wall. Montero will be waved in on his way to third base. Doyle, he is going to hold at third. Into second base, Jacob Stallings.
A downward start. Harley will shoot that. Up in front. Crowd pass for 3-1. Near skip it. In front. Scores! Short-handed. But chance. Yanmark. On that one. Here comes Draisaitl. Back to Draisaitl. Scores! Leon Draisaitl.
Happy Thursday morning. It's back on the Morning Blitz on 102.5 URock, AM 730 Fox Sports Tri-State. Of course, online, nwksradio.net, the Rockingham app. Video streaming available on X/Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Do you ever call it X? Have you ever done that in your time? I don't. That was probably the first time I've ever called it X. It's still Twitter to me.
If I've ever called it X, I've called it Twitter in the same sentence, you know?
X/Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Like what you just did. And I realize we've been saying go watch the stream on Twitter this whole time, and I guess technically we should be saying X, but who cares?
For people who follow it, it's still
Twitter.
It still should be. I don't know what old Elon's got up his tailpipe, but he's got something up there. Who knows? But
he just wanted to make it unique.
It was unique. What else was Twitter? That was pretty
great. It was a great brand. It was an established brand.
I don't get it.
I don't know why he gets rid of that. But
anyway, yeah, ridiculous. How's everything going this Thursday morning?
You know what? Everything is going just fine. Had some severe weather last night, which is not good.
How'd
but
that
had
go?
A lot
It was first
less.
time flying solo, right?
It was first time flying solo. At night. I had done it when the last couple times it happened during the day. Everyone else in the station just wants to pawn it off on me, so as the excuse of giving me experience. So yeah, exactly. Oh, he needs practice. Make him go do it. But last night was not nearly as bad as was expected. There was supposed to be a lot more severe weather, so you won't catch me complaining about a severe thunderstorm in Cheyenne last night. You know what? Unrelated to anything, because I know it's not going to come up in the show. But the funniest thing happened last night. Tiger. Well, maybe it's not that funny. I found it funny. Tigers played the Pirates in a doubleheader last night, and the Tigers.
Game 2. Talking game 2 of the doubleheader, or game 1 where Paul Skeens had 9 strikeouts.
Game 2. Skeens had the phenomenal day where he just we got skeened. I don't know if that's a thing. But 6 innings,
all right,
9 days,
so
brutalized
the second
us.
game.
What I was gonna say was during the first game, the Pistons decided that they were gonna do, or not the Pistons, that doesn't make any sense. The Bally Sports, Detroit, decided that they were gonna do a little bit of coverage for the guys, and they compared on the air. They put up someone in the production truck spent actual time putting together a graphic with a comparison of Paul Skeens' social media followers and his girlfriend Livy Dunn and her social media followers. And I think that's just the funniest thing that has ever happened on any baseball broadcast. For the record, he does not have TikTok, so he lost the chance to compete with her 8 million followers.
Something me and Paul Skeens have in common. That's good. Don't have TikTok.
The stupidest thing, but the funniest thing. The title of the graphic was Gen Z's new power couple, which is as ridiculous as you might guess. So that was the most interesting thing that happened to me yesterday. So it tells you what kind of Thursday.
Tells you what your day was like yesterday. That's
what
for
about
sure.
Ross?
My Thursday was fine. Like I said, I had some sales stuff to finish up on and wrap up on. I had some some on-air production to do for our good friend Paul Heskett to help him out with a few things. Did all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't too terribly bad, but I find a way to stay busy. It's amazing. I'll check the clock. I'm like, holy cow, it's already noon. It's amazing how these little tiny tasks, nothing huge, but just lots of little tiny tasks that all of a sudden add up and it's noon. And then, before you know it, it's 4 and it's time to go get time to get a pump in or get a little blood pumping, one of the two. And then, it's evening time and that's family time, kids time, stuff like that. So, yeah. And like I said, not much on for sports yesterday, last night, really, not really much at all. I know the NHL playoffs and Edmonton came back from a 2-0 deficit to win 5-2 over Dallas yesterday. So that was about the only major sports thing. Today, the Women's College World Series, though, gets going from Oklahoma City, 4 games today, which is a ton of fun. Also, of course, tonight is game 5 of the NBA Finals. They're back in Minnesota. So, yeah. So sports will pick back up after a little bit of an off day there on a Wednesday, but that's all right. We got a full show ahead today. We'll try and get some more on the Bronny James staying in the NBA draft and some other players that are going to stay in the NBA draft or come back to college. There's a good list, including Johnny Furphy, who's in that list. We'll get to that coming up in our third segment. Eric Sorensen of D1 Baseball is going to join the show in about 15-20 minutes as we talk with him about the upcoming college baseball regionals, which begins tomorrow at 10 o'clock Mountain, 11 o'clock Central Time with a handful of games and a roll all day. So look forward to visiting with him and Eric Sorensen. He's such a great conversation. But I want to start off the show talking about the big news yesterday that came out in the afternoon. And that was the news that Kansas and athletic director Travis Goff have agreed on a new 7-year contract through the year of 2031. With this new deal, Goff has gotten a significant pay raise, which now he will go from being the lowest paid AD at $750,000 a year to now making $1.6 million over the next 7. That is a big deal there for Travis Goff. And let me tell you, this is totally deserving of it. Absolutely deserving of it is Travis Goff, who, by the way, I think he's a Kansas native. I think he's from Dodge City originally. I could be wrong.
Really?
Yes, he's a Kansas native. Is Travis Goff, and he came to Kansas, ran the athletic department, has done just a fantastic job. The raise that he is getting, the extension that he is receiving, is totally merited by look at the success of the athletic department. First and foremost, you have to look at what was there prior. The athletic department was in the ground, not in good. The only thing really floating the department was probably men's basketball and maybe women's volleyball a little bit. Those are about the only 2 programs that were kind of decent before Travis Goff got there. Since then, he fired Les Miles, brought in Lance Leipold. We've all seen what's happened there. They've gone from being the laughingstock of college football to being a top 3 to 4 team in this year's upcoming preseason Big 12 rankings. He's done such a great job in a short time. Bill Self has held the fort down there in Allen Fieldhouse, and they continue to be a dominant force in college basketball. Just recently in college baseball, Dan Fitzgerald had Kansas making a pretty deep run. In fact, they were the Price era at the end of for his era was terrible. They were really, really bad. In just a couple of years, Dan Fitzgerald pretty much had Kansas baseball on the bubble. They didn't make the tournament, but they were on the bubble this year. They had a decent year, did KU baseball. Track and field has been good. Softball's on the up and up. Women's basketball underneath Coach Schneider has really come up really good. They've been playing very well over the last few years. They made the tournament. They've really had some good success over the last few years since Travis Goff got into office and started running that athletics department. And it's amazing when you have a leader that makes the right decisions and pushes the right buttons, what will happen in your athletic department to find success. It's amazing to see. And so, once again, there's no doubt that he receives this and also cannot forget, he's also, of course, the leading man behind organizing and orchestrating the $450 million in football facility projects, which includes the Kansas Memorial Stadium, which is going to be brand spanking new here in a couple of years, and the facility upgrades that they're having as well. And not forget, he also has helped the Kansas initiate $50 million in upgrades to Allen Fieldhouse. So they have found ways to not only bring in good coaches, find success, but then raise money to help redo things that need to get redone in their facilities.
That seems in my mind to be almost the biggest thing. I think a lot of people are quick to judge ADs on wins and losses, and realistically they should be to a certain extent. But I think a lot of people don't realize that within athletic departments, the AD and those real higher ups have to do a lot of, for lack of a better word, politicking in getting that money and securing a total of $500 million, $500 million between the Kansas Memorial Stadium and between Allen Fieldhouse. That type of money, getting that secured from a state-run university, at the end of the day, it's a state-run university. It's government-run. Securing money for anything, especially athletics, within a school like that is not easy. It takes a lot of work, and I think that needs more emphasis than maybe he's getting. Wouldn't you like to be, by the way, the lowest paid anything at $750,000 a year?
Great.
Yeah. Great job, I think, for Kansas to secure him. It feels like through 2031 is longer than it is, only 7 years. But that's a big deal. Having him locked down, having Leipold locked down, having Bill Self locked down, as much money as that took, is a big deal. To have all of these guys that have become mainstays of your program and cornerstones to success for your whole school is huge, especially because, like Ross said, Goff was such a big part of getting Leipold here and keeping him. He is a commodity, as we've talked about many times on this show, for other programs looking for coaches, and to keep him around and to get him extended, Leipold at KU is also a big deal. This is big time for Kansas. I think having him secured, locked down, realistically for only 1.6 is awesome. I know that's a lot of money, but
well, it's certainly going to be. You were talking about how this is a difficult job as an athletic director, and it's only getting harder every single day. It really truly is.
It's true.
It used to be about, hiring and firing of coaches and doing, listening, hearing all your coaches and trying to facilitate them as best as you can with the budget that you have. That things are changing. They're changing quite a bit over the last couple of months. Obviously, it's changed a ton. Now if you are, now if you're athletic directors, now you have to take into account that, we're going to have to set aside $200 or $20 million every single year out of our budget to help pay our student athletes. That's a huge cut. That's a huge cut of money out of your daily income. That's our yearly income. That's a humongous cut. And you're going to have to find a way to do that now. And so 80 jobs, they're getting paid a lot of money. And they probably need it because it's a very, very difficult job. It's becoming way more difficult to politic, to think about now. Now you not only have to raise money to try to keep your facilities up somewhat decent, but you also have to raise more money to try and pay athletes as well. You need more money.
And we're going to talk about it next week, but it might end up literally being KU has to actually set aside salaried money for these athletes, which makes this job even harder. He got here 2021, I believe, and NIL was just starting to rear its head at this time. Imagine having to do the things that ADs do, keep the success of all of his programs, hire and firing coaches, securing what he did, $500 million for renovations and for new stadiums, and then to have to navigate the landscape of NIL and basically all of college sports on the face is changing. I think that's so hard to keep up with, and any AD that essentially from when NIL has started, right around that time when Goff took over, through to now, to not only keep their job but to thrive, is maybe deserves more credit than they're getting just for that.
You know, you're talking about raising money, and there's another thing to keep in mind. Not all, in fact, a majority of athletic departments are in the red already before now you're going to have to start paying athletes.
It's true.
There are not many athletic departments that are in the black. And so you're going to, this job is becoming more and more difficult. And think about this. Kansas tore down their stadium. I doubt they had all $450 million all secured up, ready to rock and roll for the stadium. I doubt they did. They're probably still in the process of getting some money raised up a little bit.
Sure.
And so with this whole deal coming down, think about that. What he's going to have to navigate is, well, we got to keep our athletes here. We got to pay them. And we're going to try to get this stadium built because we don't have one right now. We're playing in Arrowhead and we're playing over there where the Kansas City Current play and all that stuff. So, yeah, first and foremost, once we get back to the original point, Travis Goff gets an extension and a massive raise. He's deserving of it. ADs have a very tough job going forward in the scene of college athletics. But Goff has done a great job at what he's done at Kansas. He no doubt is deserving of this. And if you're Kansas, you're feeling good because you have secured your athletic director, your football coach, and your basketball coach. Your three most important people probably in the athletic department you have secured there for the long-term future, which is great. And so you have to feel very good about that going forward.
Absolutely, as you should.
One more thing before we get to break here. We kind of touched on this yesterday, but we were talking about the Negro Leagues getting their statistics in with Major League Baseball. I was doing some more reading on this last night because I just find it interesting. And besides the fact that I realized that I was just reaffirmed that there are just some amazing names in Negro League Baseball. Have you gone through and read some of these Negro League names that they were talking about in some of these articles?
Not all
really
of them.
is. Like Charlie Chino Smith is one of those guys as well. There was some other ones that was like Schoolboy Brown or something like that. There are some unbelievably amazing names that have come through the Negro Leagues that just make me laugh and think those are great nicknames and just hilarious. So despite that fact, did you get a chance to read some more on this at all?
A little bit. I haven't read anything yet that's sort of changes my opinion that you're essentially merging two leagues.
Right. But I'll tell you why I actually feel a little bit better about it after doing a little bit more research. Did you know that so when the Negro Leagues existed, they played around 60 games a season.
Yeah.
You know how many games a year Major League Baseball played?
At that time?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a drop down.
60.
Is it? Okay.
So they played 60-some games. So they pretty much played a similar length of schedule in the year. Now, the thing that does have me concerned, and I think it could be a good thing and a bad thing, is that they've only accumulated 75% of the stats.
Mm-hmm.
You're missing 25%. You're missing a whole quarter of the statistics, which could either make or break a lot of things. But this was a deal that Rob Manfred, Commissioner of Baseball, wanted to get done 3 years ago, and they've got it now in the works, and there are some people that are certainly deserving of these honors and getting these records. Like I said, I don't know. I wasn't alive or even close to being alive when the Negro Leagues played. The question would be, do you feel like the Negro Leagues were more talented than Major League Baseball?
I don't think it matters whether they were more or less talented.
But
I think if you had
from top to bottom, because let's face it, if Josh Gibson goes up and is going up against Satchel Paige, for example, which would be very difficult but if he's going up against a Christian Peck-Dimit type pitcher for some team that doesn't good, I mean, he's going to hit 600 whatever and so many home runs. Get what I'm saying?
He's batting 1,000 on me. Let's not get that.
That's my point. Was the depth of the league top to bottom that great? But the thing is, you could sit there and say the same thing about Major League Baseball. how good was the depth back in the day?
Exactly my point is that I don't think it matters whether it's likely that one was more talented top to bottom than the other. I don't think it matters whether one was more talented than the other or one was more this or that. You have two different leagues at the end of the day. They can be exactly the same with their rules, with their setup, maybe even their talent, but they're playing in two different leagues, and a merger seems odd. No? Maybe I'm crazy, and I'm not as much of a baseball.
But if you want to go back through the history books, there were other leagues besides the MLB, like the Federal League and some other leagues that were adopted into Major League Baseball statistics.
Why did they do that?
Because they were just combining. That was back in the they were taking all those statistics and combining them into.
That feels just as odd to me.
But that's what they did. And so they've been holding out on the Negro League for, 50, 60, 75, 80 years now, because they did that back in the 40s and 50s, truck these other leagues and combine them into baseball statistics. And now you have the Negro Leagues finally getting in there. And really the biggest thing holding back the Negro Leagues as of late has been the fact that they don't have the complete statistics, although they continue to work on have 75% of it done.
Which, like you mentioned, and I said it yesterday, feels like a small percentage relative to what you should have. And it took evidently a lot of work to get to that 75. You're going through old videos and newspaper clippings. But I'm not saying Negro League specific. Relative to what they should and adding all of those other leagues, they definitely should add the Negro Leagues as they did. But at the same time, it feels odd to me merging leagues at all. I mean, the NBA is the only one that makes sense because it was a true and genuine two different leagues just combining together into one. It feels odd when you're just cramming all of these statistics from other leagues and you're putting them on the same plane. Not saying they're better or worse, but saying that they're the same feels disingenuous to one or the other.
It's a fascinating storyline to continue to follow. I'll be intrigued to see what the final percentage is that they get of statistics, because that has got to be excruciatingly hard. Tracking down old newspapers and trying to find old photos and stuff, that's got to be unbelievably difficult to track all that down.
My guess is that this has been in the works for a while behind the scenes, and if they're releasing it now and officially combining it at 75%, they feel that they're not going to get a whole lot larger than that, or at least not easily.
See, and that to me is a little bit difficult because 25% could really change a lot of numbers for a lot of guys.
Absolutely.
But we'll see. All right, let's get to a break. We're at the bottom of the hour here. We come back. We'll continue to talk some more baseball. College baseball's regionals gets going here tomorrow. Eric Sorensen, our good friend from D1 Baseball, is kind enough to join us and talk to us about that next and preview the regionals and Kansas State and all that stuff next. You're listening to the Morning Blitz here on a Thursday.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online at hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation to determine the ED medication that's best for you. Discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and a range of treatment options, including trusted generic alternatives to the name brands, at up to 95% off. ED is personal, and at Hims, so is treating it. Just go to hims.com/joy and get connected to a licensed medical provider online for free, with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. hims.com/joy.
It's time for a check of the markets with the Anderson Trade Group on the Kansas Farm and Ranch Radio Network.
Good morning. This is Kate Thompson with the Anderson Trade Group. Today is Thursday, May 30th. On the overnight last night, July corn traded higher 3/4 at 4.56. September unchanged at 4.65. December down 3/4 at 4.78. And March corn down 1 at 4.90 3/4. July soybeans up a cent at 12.15 1/4. August up 1 1/2 at 12.15 1/4. September up 2 at 11.99. And November beans up 2 1/2 at 11.99 1/4. Chicago wheat, the July contract traded lower on the overnight 7 at 685.5. September down 7 at 706.75. December down 7.25, 729. And March soft wheat down 7 cents at 745.25. Kansas City wheat, the July contract lower 3.25 on the overnights at 716.5. September down 3.5 at 730.25. December down 4 at 746.25. March down 3.5 at 758.5. On the stock market this morning, the Dow down 311 at 38,213. The S&P down $15 at 5,269. The Nasdaq down 34 at 18,768. Gold higher at $21.80 an ounce at 2,363, and crude oil down 48 cents a barrel at 78.75. If you have any questions about marketing grain or would like to talk about risk management options, give our Colorado office a call. John Hanke at 970-744-4484, or here in our Kansas City office, myself, Tom Pluto, Jared Law, or Tyler Ghosh at 913-748-3000.
The Anderson Trade Group, proud market partners with Kansas Farm and Ranch Radio. Find out more at andersongrain.com. The risk of loss through trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance, whether actual or indicated, is not indicative of future results. The Anderson Trade Group has no guarantee that the advice given will result in profitable trades.
At Case IH, we know you work hard all year to maximize your yield at harvest. And to do that, you need a combine that works as hard as you do. That's why we built the new AF11 with more horsepower, more efficiency, and more capacity than any other combine out there. Plus, built-in automation to harvest more easily than ever before. To do more with every engine hour, you need equipment that's as good as you are. You need the best in your field. Visit your local Case IH dealer for more on the AF11.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, and cleaner American fuel. This message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Owner Alan at All Affordable Autos has really grown his car business over this last decade, serving the entire area with used cars, pickups, and SUVs. They offer unique financing deals, mainly because Alan used to be a banker and a loan specialist for USDA. So he sure has the experience to find you that perfect financing option where others can't. They have a very good selection on the lot right now, and of course, they'll take your trade-ins. And remember, if you refer a buying customer, you'll receive $200. Yes, $200 from All Affordable Autos across from the Oakley Pizza Hut.
It's the Morning Blitz.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
Weekday mornings from 7 to 8 Mountain, 8 to 9 Central on 102.5 U Rock and the Rocking M app.
Are you a big Detroit, Michigan Kid Rock fan since you're from Detroit, Michigan? Do you like Kid Rock?
I played him on my show on 97.9 yesterday, actually.
Really? Wow. All right. How about that?
So yes is the answer.
Kid Rock. Good deal. Well, as we mentioned going into break, a very busy weekend. If you love baseball and if you love softball, this is your day. The Women's College World Series gets going today. 4 games today. Alabama, UCLA, followed by Duke, Oklahoma, who always has an advantage. Stanford, Texas, and Oklahoma State, who's also there for the second consecutive year, also has a big-time home advantage. And then Florida in the nightcap. So that's I feel like a lot of those teams have been back. Duke is kind of a new one, but a lot of the teams are typical teams. Usually have about one team that's kind of like, I don't remember them being there. But a lot of those teams you see quite a bit at the Women's College World Series. But we're going to talk about the Men's College World Series as the road to Omaha begins tomorrow. And Eric Sorensen, kind enough to join us and talk about the upcoming College World Series.
Eric Sorensen from D1 Baseball, as we have reached that magical time of year. The road to Omaha begins this coming weekend with the first round of regional play. Eric, how excited are you for the upcoming postseason?
Oh, Ross, this is always kind of the time of year where I start to geek out a little bit more than normal, I guess. It's kind of a mixed bag because I love that now we got the teams, the 64 teams, just like in college basketball where it's 68 teams, I guess. But, we have our field now But at the same time, I feel a little bummed out for the teams that haven't made it, and the teams that are, now there's only 64 teams, not 300 in Division I playing baseball. So you kind of got mixed emotions about it. But yes, this is the time that it really starts to get good.
Let's dive into the breakdown of the bracket a little bit. First and foremost, going back to Monday with the teams that were selected and weren't selected. Let's start with the bad first. What teams that weren't selected you thought maybe kind of got the shaft this year?
Yeah, this is always kind of a thing. I always temper this with, I'll start with this first, Ross. I always temper this question with, well, at least this isn't college football where we're talking about the 5th team or the 6th team that got shafted, which will now be, I guess, 13th and 14th team. So at least it's the 65th and 66th team, that didn't get in. It's not as bad. But yeah, there's always a few, and sort of the ones that kind of came to my mind. They talked about the last 4 in being California, Charleston, Cincinnati, and TCU. I just thought TCU was in. I didn't even give that a second thought. I covered the Big 12 tournament last weekend, and people like on some of the radio shows I went on prior to that, they were like, "Hey, how many in the Big 12 get in?" And I counted them up, and TCU was one of the teams I just always counted in. I was really surprised they didn't get it. California, the Bears from Berkeley, I was a little surprised. I know their RPI wasn't great, but I just thought a 4th Pac-12 team I thought they deserved that. I thought it was a good league this year. And the one that did not show up on the first 4 out that I was really surprised at was Northeastern. And the reason I say that, I know they finished behind Charleston in their conference, the CAA. So Charleston, I thought as a champion of the conference that they should have gotten rewarded. But Northeastern is a team that got an RPI at 34, and for a team up in the northeast part of the country to get that good of an RPI, to build that good of a number, that's about all you can ask of them. And they didn't get a bid, and I was really kind of surprised by it. And again, they didn't get one of the final 4 out, so I was really surprised by that.
No, that's amazing, and that leads to a lot of controversy because I know you are one man who has talked about some of the teams that you didn't think deserved to get in. And one of those would be Florida, who did get in by the skin of their teeth. Whereas, and there's a team like Northeastern that probably should have taken their spot. But Florida is one team that I know you're going to say probably didn't deserve to get in. Were there any other teams that got in that maybe probably shouldn't have?
Yeah, I mean, I might have talked with you about it before. There were 5 teams in the SEC with 13 and 17 conference records. And to me, I've always thought it's a no-no. Don't have a losing record in conference. At least play 500 ball, no matter what conference you're in, even if it's the SEC. But I thought they were going to make an example of Florida. Of one of those teams, I thought Florida was going to be They went 0-1 the conference tournament. They had a record of just one game over 500. They really underachieved all season long. I think the record, or what it was, they lost 6 of their last 7 SEC weekends too, which is really bad. Even if you're playing SEC teams, I'm sorry, that's really bad. So that was one team I thought. And again, we're talking about when they talked about the last 4 teams in, Florida was not one of them. So they apparently made it in quite comfortably, which I was not a fan of. And I think you saw it on the selection show. Coastal Carolina, Indiana, Florida, and one other team I'm forgetting. They got Kansas State, even your hometown state, K-State. They all had members. Their athletic directors on the committee, the selection committee, and all of them kind of bubble teams like that. They all made it in, and we talked about TCU and Cal, and Northeastern did not. So yeah, I thought Florida was one that I didn't see them getting in. I wasn't sure about Coastal Carolina, but when I heard that they had their athletic director on the selection committee, I thought, and with Gary Gilmore retiring after this season, I thought, oh yeah, they're going to get a bid, even if I don't think they really deserve one.
God, it's just, I get it, but it's also kind of sad, to see it go down that way where because you had an inside man, you were able to find your way into the tournament. That kind of stinks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved Kurt Sarlos, the coach for TCU. I loved his response. He said, well, I guess next year we just need to make sure and have somebody on the selection committee from our school, and that way we'll get in.
Yeah.
But he did relent and say, we put ourselves in this position, of being on the bubble. So he did say that, but I loved his sarcastic second response to that.
No, that was fantastic. Eric Sorensen of D1 Baseball is our guest here on the Blitz. Boy, when you look at the overall bracket now of this field of 64, is there any particular regionals that really stand out to you?
Yeah, I kind of thought if like one of the things that we do for D1 baseball, actually the articles might be up on our site now. We kind of have a round table and we just, each of us put in, what we think is the easiest and the toughest regional. I kind of thought number 2, Kentucky, got the toughest regional because they've got as their number 2 seed, Indiana State, a team that had an RPI at number 10. Why they didn't get a home regional, I don't know. But Indiana State is a really dangerous number 2 because they were a regional team last year, won a regional, and played in the super regionals. So they're a team that's experienced. And also Illinois being the Big Ten champion, I kind of lean little bit towards teams that are regular season champion, especially from I guess we can call the Big Ten a Power 5 in baseball too. So I kind of thought Kentucky got a little bit of a tough regional. More so than just about anybody. And Oklahoma probably had, if not the toughest, Oklahoma probably had the second toughest, getting Duke and UConn. UConn's a team from the Northeast. I think a little underrated. I saw them a couple times this year. I really think they're a good team. They struggled early because they played so many road games. So I thought Oklahoma and Kentucky were the 2 regional hosts that probably have the toughest fields. And if you want one for the easiest, I'm going to go with number 7 seed Georgia. They get UNC Wilmington and Georgia Tech. And according to Boyd Nation's ISR rankings, those are the two of the weaker, or actually UNC Wilmington is one of the weakest number 2 seeds out there. And Georgia Tech is a team that, Georgia's very familiar with, and I think they can take them down. So I think Georgia probably got a little bit of an easy ride into the regional round, or super regional round, that is.
Let's go back and talk about some of our regional teams. We talked about Kansas State making the cut. Nebraska won the Big Ten tournament and also was in the field of 64 even prior to that. What do you think about their 2 draws? K-State going to Fayetteville, Nebraska heading to Stillwater.
Yeah, to be honest with you, as far as K-State goes, they're playing against the Louisiana Tech team. I saw both of those teams this year. I really was impressed with K-State. I was glad they made it in. In fact, let's do this short off of this one. Just go a little off trail on this one. Can you imagine if K-State got left out once again this year? The scorched earth that Pete Hughes would be on right now. Oh, he would have really let somebody have it. So I'm glad they made it in. I think they got a pretty good draw. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about Arkansas because they're the number 5 seed and one of the teams that I think could win it all. But Arkansas, offensively, they don't really scare you. They don't have a lineup this year, like they had like in 2021, where 1 through 9, it's just a tough lineup. This year, they got a few holes in it. So I think they can be beaten, and we've seen before they can be beaten on their home field, even though they have 12,000 fans there every game. But yeah, I don't mind K-State's draw here. I think they got a decent one. Again, if they don't have to face Hagen Smith in that second, if they win against Louisiana Tech and they don't have to face Hagen Smith, that's a huge boon for them. We'll see how Arkansas handles their pitching staff. But as far as Nebraska, I see that they're going back to Oklahoma State once again. I think they were there. It's not last year before. And they get Florida. They get Florida in that first game, and that's again, that Florida has some real troubles pitching. Their team ERA is number 161 in the country, and it's an above 6 ERA. So I don't think they're gonna hide from Florida. So I think that's a game that they can win. And Oklahoma State, another home host that has shown in the past, including last year to Oral Roberts, they've shown that they can be beaten at home too. But I really like, again, I didn't talk about it yet, but with the Big 12 tournament last week, I was really impressed with Oklahoma State. They won it, of course, and their batting order, man, it's just like those old Oklahoma State teams of yore, where they had a lot of power, a lot of home runs from that order. So I like them a lot, but I think Nebraska's got a really good setup there, and I think Kansas State as a 3 seed, you really couldn't ask for too much better, I think.
If there is one team that is a regional seed that you think probably doesn't have a great chance of advancing out, and a lower seeded team that you see making it to maybe the CWS, who do you think those would be?
Yeah, I could kind of go to the same regional for this one. I think Arizona is a. I mean, I'm glad they got a number 1 seed because they're the Pac-12 champions, the last Pac-12 champion, also regular season and tournament. So I think they deserved, even though their RPI was kind of crappy down at 28. I don't, that's one of those examples where the RPI is just not a good indicator. I thought Arizona's a really good team, but they really got a tough draw too. In fact, I didn't put them as my toughest draw, but I might be second guessing that now because Dallas Baptist is their number 2. And Dallas Baptist is, they've been in the tournament, 8-9 years in a row now. They're experienced at this. And Arizona also has to start off against Grand Canyon, who is probably the best 4 seed out there. I kind of look at them as this year's possible Oral Roberts. Grand Canyon's another team that's been in the NCAA tournament a number of years in a row. They've got the experience. They've got a good batting order, great pitching. I think that's a pretty tough draw for Arizona. So if there was a team that I thought a number 1 seed that could go down, I'm kind of leaning toward Arizona, even though I hate to say it because they're a Pac-12 team. But and the number 2 team, a 2 seed, I think that could emerge is definitely Dallas Baptist. I think they've got a pretty. Last year they kind of had an inexperienced team going into the regionals, lost out to Oral Roberts in that Stillwater regional. This year, much more experienced, and they got a couple of top prospects on the mound that are throwing for them, including Ryden Johnson, who's going to be a first-round draft pick. So I look at Dallas Baptist be a dangerous 2 seed out there.
So where will you and the private jet be flying to this weekend?
Well, actually, the jet will stay on the tarmac this week because I'm making that nice, pleasurable drive up Pacific Coast Highway to go to the Santa Barbara Regional, which is a really good field with number 2 San Diego, number 3 Oregon, and number 4 seed Fresno State. I think that's a pretty balanced regional there. But Santa Barbara's 25-0 at home this year. I think their pitching staff is possibly the best in the country as far as rotation goes. They really have started pitching better lately. So yeah, I'm going to go check out the Gauchos. Now, Ross, I'm going to tell you this. It's completely on the record too. But Santa Barbara has a really small rinky-dink stadium. I'm glad they have a regional there because that does prove that the NCAA it isn't all about money making and all that when it comes to awarding teams for home regionals. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they've kind of gussied it up a bit. They've apparently added some stands to the along the outfield wall and along the side. So I'll be sure to post pictures of what they've done to the stadium and the facility to host a regional, even though it's not a very big place.
I think that's what makes college baseball still one of the great college sports is still the rinky-dink stadiums and all that stuff still makes it great. He is Eric Sorensen of D1 Baseball. Eric, thank you so much for the time. Safe travels up there to watch some baseball this weekend. We'll catch up soon.
You got it. Thanks, Ross.
Once again, great stuff there. Thanks again to Eric Sorensen. Have you ever seen where the Gauchos play? You got to look that up. It is like right on the coast. Like it's got to be less than a 5, like maybe probably a 2-3 minute walk from the baseball stadium to the beach.
Pretty nice.
That's pretty nice right there. That's for sure. All right, let's get to our final break. We'll come back. Quick thought on Bronny going to the NBA and some other teams and some other guys going to the NBA and a good handful of players sticking around to play college ball. That's next year on the Morning Blitz.
Your livelihood is important to you. You work hard to succeed in your farming operation, crop, livestock, home, vehicles, and special needs. We have you covered. Discounts are available for new business, remodeling, hail-resistive roofing, multi-policy, and many more. Optional coverage endorsements as well for machinery, ingestion, and equipment breakdown. Umbrella coverage for additional coverage on your home, farm, and auto. See the girls at the insurance agency at 1020 Main in Goodland or call 785-899-5011.
Lohr Electric is your local expert. When you visit with Zach at Lohr Electric, he'll tell you they can do anything. At least when it comes to electrical work, Lohr Electric is your local expert. From replacing lights in your home to LEDs to save money to even setting up power to grain bins on the farm. No matter if it's residential, commercial, or agricultural, Lohr Electric is your local expert. Contact them today and see how Zach and his crew can help with your electrical needs, because they do more at Lohr.
If you're shopping for a banking institution, visit with Equity Bank of Hoxie, Grinnell, and Quinter, Kansas. The Equity Bank is heavily invested in local business and activities contributing in many ways back to their community. Their employees are involved with many organizations and area events. Plus, a lot of experience comes with that staff. You'll find valuable local assistance when you bank at the Equity Bank of Hoxie, Grinnell, Quinter, and other locations in Western Kansas. The Equity Bank, member FDIC.
Spring into adventure this month with Hurl Chevrolet GMC of Goodland, Kansas.
Get a 2024 Chevy Silverado 1500 pickup, 9.1% APR, up to $5,750 in cash allowance. A 2024 GMC Sierra 1500 pickup with 5.3-liter engine for 1.9% plus an additional $3,250 in purchase allowance when you trade an eligible vehicle plus no payments for 90 days. Or how about a 2024 GMC Terrain with 0.9% APR plus $1,500 purchase allowance and no payments for 90 days.
See the complete inventory or schedule service online anytime at hurlchev.com.
Want to be part of the Morning Blitz?
Don't fight it. Tell me how you really feel.
Send your thoughts to our text line at 785-899-2222.
As always, you miss any of the show, catch up on the podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts. Of course, video streaming available. Go to NWKS Radio, which is .com. That's our website, and I think you can go to the one of the tabs there, and you can rewatch the shows there as well. It's like the replay page, kind of the replay page there if you want to. So, like we said yesterday, if you want to see our great faces twice in a day, go right on ahead. Bronny James is going to stay in the NBA draft. He came into the NBA Combine as like the 96th prospect. I think he exited like at the 56th prospect. What are your thoughts on Bronny James, who hardly played any college ball at USC due to a heart condition, mind you, going into the NBA? What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
We could fill a whole segment with my thoughts on this situation, but if my dad were named LeBron James, I'd go in the NBA draft early too. He, by all accounts, would benefit greatly from another and a full year playing college ball. But maybe his dad's telling him, hey, I don't have another couple of years left. And this is a contract year for LeBron. He could potentially go somewhere else if the Lakers don't draft Bronny, because LA in desperate need of more ticket sales, and the big market that they're in has come out and said, yeah, we'll go draft Bronny for you, to keep you. So
I love how Bronny also has turned down like workouts from multiple different franchises, but has only said yes to a couple.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a certain number of teams that are interested in him genuinely. Anyways, he's not a bad shooter, but he's not nearly good enough to make up for his size at the combine. It turns out that he is actually 6'1".
If this guy was named
6'4".
Bronny Johnson, he would not even be getting a sniff in the NBA.
Not this year.
If it was Bronny Johnson.
Not this year, that's for sure. He was listed at 6'4" all the way through high school to where he is now. Turns out he's actually 6'1".
6'3" line.
That can be an issue for a guy that is athletic and as defensive-minded as he is, because it limits his ability on that side of the floor. Realistically, it'd be great to see him have another year, but at the same time, I'm not going to blame the kid for going and grabbing some money in the league a year early, because he can.
Well, and I think his dad's agent, Rich Paul, is really trying hard to make sure that Bronny gets drafted so that he gets at least a 3-year deal and he's not on like a 2-way contract or something like that. I think he's trying very hard by saying LeBron might be going into free agency. By the way, if LeBron signs back up with the Lakers, you know how much he'll make?
$1 billion?
$51 million for a year extension.
He can, and I know that's not even the max potential. The max, because if you make an all-NBA team, it allows you to be eligible for a super max if you meet some other qualifications. That's another thing I can fill a whole segment talking about. But Luka could be eligible for the largest contract in NBA. Well, is eligible for the largest contract extension in NBA history this offseason. If he has a ring on top of it, basically Dallas would have to put ink on that paper.
A 3-run walk-off home run, a game-winning walk-off with a walk-off His second walk-off hit of the season. In walk-off fashion, that baby's gone.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, if his name was Bronny Johnson, he would not be even getting a sniff in the NBA draft this year. So it's ridiculous the amount of pull that his dad has, but he does. And that's the way it is. He always has. But there is some good news for college basketball fans. There was a good number of players that said, you know what, I'm not going to go to the NBA draft. And there's some good players here. Mark Sears, who was a great guard there at Alabama, he's coming back to Bama. Caleb Love, great guard at Arizona, previous at North Carolina, he's coming back to AZ. Former Kansas State Wildcat Arthur Kaluma, he says, I'm going to come back. He's not going to Kansas State. He's going somewhere else. But he is coming back to college basketball. Johnny Furphy, though, says, nope, I'm sticking in the draft, which is continuing the trend where the NBA is heading. International players, I think, are soon going to be a higher percentage than even American-born players in the NBA in the somewhat not too distant future.
I don't know about a higher percentage, but certainly it's become a global game. And once again, the NBA trend goes for guys like him, guys like Stephen Castle, Stephon Castle, who aren't exactly blowing up stat sheets, but our athletes have length, skill, and upside.
It'll be fascinating to see where the game goes in the coming years. Speaking of the game, Game 5 of the NBA Finals is tonight. Of the Western Conference Finals, not NBA Finals, Western Conference Finals. Dallas and Minnesota. You can catch that game this evening. And, of course, the Women's College World Series gets going today. You can watch a little college softball. Very entertaining.